May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be always acceptable, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Lazarus is dead, Jesus tells the disciples. It's not hard to imagine all the questions that might be running through the minds of the disciples and the hearts of Mary and Martha. They are the same kind of questions we may have heard being asked or we ask ourselves when we must endure tragic accidents, unexpected deaths, and funerals that seemingly come too soon. They are the same kind of questions we ask ourselves and each other whenever life is interrupted and changed in ways that we do not want. They are the same kind of questions we ask when circumstances show us just how difficult and fragile and beautiful life really is. Why? How could this happen? What's next for me? Is this an ending or a beginning? Could it be both? How do I move forward? How do I make sense of what has happened? What will life be like now? Why didn't it work out the way that I wanted? What could or should I have done differently? Is there life after this? Why didn't God do something? Every one of us could add to this list. We all have our questions. There are thousands of them. The ultimate question, the one that lies beneath and grounds all our other questions, is the one God asked Ezekiel. Mortal, can these bones live? That's really what we're asking. That's what I want to know, don't you? That question is the valley that cuts through the center of our lives. And yet it is not a simple yes or no kind of question. Neither is it answered for the last time. It's a question we live with that may be asked again and again, over and over. What is the valley that cuts through the center of your life? What questions did you ask when the Lazarus of your life died? What questions are you asking today? Every time life sets before me those kinds of questions, I am reminded once again that I live with more questions than answers. And the answers I do have no longer seem to carry the weight or authority that they once did. Our lives are filled with unanswered questions. My experience is that the unanswered questions of life tend to leave us disappointed in life, in ourselves and one another, and sometimes in God. Disappointment is wrapped up and bound by our unmet expectations. I think that's where Mary and Martha are in today's gospel. They are disappointed. Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. They both say it separately to Jesus. Even the crowd that follows Mary is disappointed. Could he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying, they ask. Well, I know that disappointment, and I'll bet you do too. We all want answers, explanations, and understanding. And maybe there aren't any, at least not the kind most of us want. Maybe life itself is an unanswered question, and maybe that's how we are to live it. Jesus does not offer answers or explanations to Mary and Martha or to us. Instead, he uses our disappointment as an agency for transformation. Jesus seems to know that disappointment is inescapable, necessary, and even a faithful response to life's circumstances. He neither criticizes nor ridicules Martha and Mary for their disappointment. Instead, he uses it as an opening and entry point into their lives. There's something honest, heartfelt, and real about Mary and Martha's words of anguish to Jesus. They are vulnerable, offering and making themselves available to him. They rethink what they know about life, death, and the resurrection. They risk smelling that stench of death. They're walking into that valley that cuts through the center of their lives. To attempt to insulate ourselves from disappointment and demand once and for all kinds of answers to life's questions is to close ourselves to the vulnerabilities that make possible real life, intimacy, love, and relationships with God or with one another. It limits what we are willing to risk giving or receiving. It leaves the stone in place over Lazarus's tomb and refuses to consider God's question to Ezekiel. While we might want to escape our disappointments, life wants to use them. Life will not waste our disappointments, and Jesus always stands in the middle of life. Disappointment calls into question our assumptions about life, ourselves, each other, and God. Disappointment asks us to reassess ourselves and our inner world. The first step is in freeing us from misguided assumptions. It breaks old patterns of seeing and relating that have become harder and less than life-sustaining. It opens our eyes to a deeper way of seeing. Jesus uses our disappointment in the unanswered questions of life to invite us to a larger foundational reality than what we create for ourselves or project onto the world. Isn't that what he's doing with Mary and Martha? I am the resurrection and life. Do you believe this? Take away the stone. Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God? Lazarus, come out. Unbind him and let him go. With those words, Jesus is holding before Martha and Mary the valley he knows that cuts through the center of their lives. He is asking them that ancient question posed to the prophet, mortal, can these bones live again? Martha and Mary respond to this unspoken question by seeing their world differently. Martha's profession of faith stirs us with its power. Mary weeps. Mary grieves, and Jesus joins her by also weeping. Jesus stays in the valley with both of them, allowing each to use his presence as a guide. This question lies before each of us when we come to the valley of the shadow of death in our lives. It's a question we often must answer every day. It's a question Jesus answered throughout his life. Don't think that Jesus did not know disappointment. He surely did. He knew disappointment in the death of Lazarus, the crucifixion, Peter's denial, his drawn sword and violence, Judas's betrayal, the disciples sleeping in the garden, the way his father's house had been turned into a den of robbers, his disciples arguing about who was the greatest, and the disciples' misunderstanding of who he was, the world's refusal to receive him, and in a myriad of other ways. Every disappointment held before him, as it does for us, the choice between engaging or retreating from the world and our lives. He refused to be stopped by his disappointments. Instead, he used them as entry points into our lives. They became points of identification with us. His every disappointment becomes one more step deeper into the valleys that cut through the center of our lives. And ultimately, he conquers not only our disappointments and fears, but also the very shadow of death and death itself. So let me ask you, what is the valley that cuts through the center of your life? Whatever it is, it's a place through which Jesus has walked and shown the way forward. It is not a dark place we often think it is. It's an aperture into the light, a path that opens to new life, a clearer way of seeing, a truer sense of ourselves, and a deeper experience of Christ. It becomes a place where our unbinding and we are being let go. In this valley, the question mark of life becomes God's exclamation point, the exclamation point of love, the exclamation point of life and light, the exclamation point of mercy and forgiveness, the exclamation point of wisdom, beauty, and generosity, the exclamation point of hope, healing, and compassion, and ultimately, the exclamation point of God's yes to you and to me in our lives. Mortal, can these bones live again? The answer to that question echoes through the valleys that cut through the center of our lives. Yes, they can. Yes, they do. Yes, they will.